The teaser trailers of two big movies, Emraan Hashmi's Awarapan 2 and Nani's Paradise, have been released, and honestly, there is a lot to talk about each of them. Both these movies are highly anticipated movies of 2026. Over the years, Awarapan has seen a cult following, especially with the songs and the pain associated with Emraan Hashmi's character. And Nani's Paradise has been a roller coaster ride of emotions ever since it was announced.
लहू चले चटपट सारी बना दे खल्लास.
This guy has an amazing knack of choosing the right scripts. I loved his last film Hit 3, especially the brutality. And here in Paradise, everything, right from the look, the screen presence, the action, the meter has gone up a few notches. Lots to talk about, so let's get started first with Awarapan 2.
इस बार या तो ये आवारापन खत्म होगा या मैं.
Let's do a quick history lesson. The original Awarapan came out in 2007. It wasn't a huge hit at the time, but it became one of those films people found later and never let go of. Emraan Hashmi played a guy named Shivam Pandit, and the whole thing worked because of the mood, the music, the sadness, that feeling of a man who's already lost before the story even starts. Mohit Suri had directed the original movie, and 19 years later, we are getting a sequel. So the question isn't whether this is a good trailer, it's whether this earns the name. First thing I noticed, Emraan Hashmi is back as Shivam Pandit. Just watching him step into that character again after almost 2 decades is absolutely different. In another version, they could have recast the role with a different actor, but it's Emraan Hashmi again, which hinges a lot more on nostalgia bait than coincidence.
मौत मेरा उससे एक पुराना रिश्ता है, एक कर्ज है जो मुझे चुकाना है.
Behind the camera, it's not Mohit Suri this time, it's Nitin Kakkad, who a lot of people we know from movies like Filmistan and Notebook. And on the surface, this appears to be a very interesting pick. Kakkad isn't really known for dark, brooding thrillers. His other work is warmer and more grounded. So either he's stretching into a new territory, or the studio wanted someone who could bring restraint to a story that could easily turn into melodrama. Bilal Siddiqui is the writer, and Vishesh Bhatt is producing under Vishesh Films with Mukesh Bhatt. So the studio's fingerprints are still all over this, even with a new director in the chair. And that matters more than people think, because Vishesh Films has always had a very specific style when it comes to blending music and story. The decade of the 2000s belonged to the amazing music of Vishesh Films. Kasoor, Raz, Murder, Gangster, Awarapan, Jannat, the list is quite long, and the music is where this trailer really tries to pull you back in. The original soundtrack is genuinely one of the most loved in Hindi film music from that time. This time around, Mithun, Jeet Ganguly, Amal Malik and Akhil Sachdev are handling the score, and the trailer leans hard into that legacy. There's a reprised version of To Fir Aao along with callbacks to Tera Mera Rishta, which just sounds so good, pure nostalgia, and I'm really happy with this. They didn't recreate the track, they kept that same soul, more like a pop culture track, and it hooks you instantly. On the cast side, Emraan is joined with Disha Patani and Shabana Azmi, plus Sukhvinder Vicky, Vijayant Kohli, Anirudh Raval and Atul Kumar. Shabana Azmi's involvement is the one that catches my eye most. She's not someone who signs onto a project without something worth playing. Her being here tells me there's more happening on the script side than just cashing in on a cult classic's name. One more small detail worth mentioning. From what I can tell, the film has already gone through censor certification with a UA or 16+ rating. And a rating like that for a revenge story usually means they didn't sanitize the content to chase a wider crowd. It tells me the makers are choosing to stay true to the world they built instead of softening it for a bigger theatrical audience. And some of the shots from the trailer, like this, and this, tells a lot more about the insanity that will be unleashed in the sequel. In simpler words, this feels darker and more action heavy than the original. The first Awarapan was slow, it let scenes breathe, and it leaned on dialogue and atmosphere. This trailer feels built for a 2026 audience. Quicker cuts, higher stakes, more of a modern thriller pace, which I feel is a risk just based on the trailer. Part of what made the original work was that it never rushed. If this sequel trades that patience for speed, it could end up feeling like a different movie wearing the same name. But I want to be fair here. A trailer is edited to sell energy, not to represent the actual pacing or rhythm of a full film. I'm not going to sit here and judge the writing, the pacing or the performance of a 2-minute cut. What I can tell you is whether this trailer is promising or not, and my answer is yes, it is promising. There's also a practical detail worth mentioning if you're trying to gauge scale here. The runtime has reportedly been locked at around 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's a decent length for a kind of film like Awarapan 2. It suggests they are not treating this as a quick stripped down thriller. There's room in that runtime to build atmosphere the way the original did. Now, one thing to note is that Awarapan 2 is clashing with Sunny Deol's Batwara 1947 during the Independence Day release weekend. Sunny Deol has a big fan base for patriotic cinema, and Independence Day releases in that genre usually come with a built-in audience waiting for them.
माँ अपने आप में एक मजहब है, हर इंसान का पहला मजहब माँ है, हर बच्चे के मुंह से निकला पहला लफ्ज माँ है.
But frankly, from what I have seen of Batwara 1947 so far, it doesn't appeal to me. It's not about predicting box office numbers here. That's a total different conversation. I am telling you where my own interest lies. Between the two films releasing on that weekend, I am watching Awarapan 2 first. One last thought before I move on to Paradise. Legacy sequels always carry a bit of risk. When a film reaches back 19 years to bring back a character people genuinely loved, it's walking a tightrope. It has to honor what worked while also proving why this story needed to be told now, in this way. The trailer doesn't answer that, but it does enough to earn my patience, and honestly, that's all I'm asking from a first look. That's Awarapan 2. Now let's get into the other half of the video, a teaser that hit me differently. The Paradise starring Nani is riding on a lot of high expectations, especially after what Nani and director Shrikant Odela did with Dasara. If you have seen Dasara, you already know why this pairing matters. Dasara wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. Rooted, raw, regional storytelling that never tried to be anything other than what it was. And it worked because of that honesty. So when Odela reunites with Nani for round 2, that's not a casual pairing. These are two people who clearly found something that worked the first time and came back to build further. That alone got my attention before I had even seen a single frame. The production scale here is worth mentioning too. The budget has been reported to be around 150 crores to 200 crores, which makes this one of the biggest projects of Nani, at least from a budget perspective. Pairing that kind of money with Odela's rooted style is an interesting mix. They are trying to make something that looks and feels bigger while still holding on to the social grounding that made Dasara land the way it did. That's a tough balance to pull off, and it's a big part of why my expectations were already high walking into the teaser. Nani has built his career on range, but this looks like one of his more physically and emotionally intense parts yet. Alongside him, Kayadu Lohar plays the female lead, and the supporting cast includes Raghav Juyal and Mohan Babu, with Sampurnesh Babu also part of the film. Raghav Juyal is playing a character called Vikram Malik, and it is one of the more interesting choices here. He's already proven he can go dark and unsettling when a role calls for it, and everything in his brief appearance in this teaser suggests he's being set up as a real antagonist. Anirudh Ravichandar is the music composer, and if you have been following the promotion so far, you already know the first single hit, Aya Sher, built a lot of buzz before the teaser even dropped. That's smart sequencing on the marketing side. You drop a song that gets people humming and talking, then you follow it up with a teaser that gives them faces and a world to attach that energy to. And it worked. By the time this teaser actually dropped, there was already a wave of people waiting for it. It's also worth pointing out how deliberate this whole rollout has been. This wasn't a teaser that was just showing up out of nowhere. There was a first look poster, a handful of concept glimpses, and the studio has clearly framed this as a proper pan-India release rather than a regional film that happens to travel well later. That distinction actually matters. Everything from the start tends to think differently about scale, casting, and even how action scenes get shot, because they are designing for multiple audiences from day one instead of adjusting a regional hit for wider release afterward. You can feel that ambition in how this teaser is shot and cut. It doesn't feel like it's speaking to just one audience. It feels like it's speaking to as many people as possible.
ये सरकार जमींदारों के लिए है या लोगों के लिए है?
Now on to the story. From what the teaser shows, this is set in 1980s Sikandrabad, and it centers on a marginalized tribal community that's been denied basic rights for generations, with the story building around a leader who rises to challenge that system. That's a heavier, more socially rooted setup than your typical mass action film. It tracks with what Odela did tonally in Dasara, using a commercial star-driven movie as a way to carry something with real social weight underneath it. That kind of premise can either turn into genuinely powerful cinema, or it can feel forced if it's not handled with care. A teaser can't tell you which one you're going to get. What it can tell you is what the film wants you to feel walking in, and what this one wants you to feel is that there's real stakes here, not just spectacle for the sake of it. And onto the visual side, this teaser packs a lot into a short window. The tone is dark, gritty, and intense. There's a clear choice here to move away from anything glossy or conventional. Nani's look is completely different from what audiences are used to seeing from him, And there is one standout moment where he delivers a speech to a crowd about ending oppression. The emotional intensity in that delivery, including his voice actually cracking mid-outburst, is the strongest beat in the entire teaser for me. That moment doesn't need slow motion or a big score pushing it along. The performance alone carries it, and that's a good sign for an actor clearly stretching himself here. I want to be upfront though, I'm not going to sit here and judge the film's writing, pacing, or how well it handles these social themes, because a teaser simply can't answer that. What a teaser can do is set up the world, the tone, and how committed the cast looks. And on all three of those fronts, this delivers. Whether the story ends up landing with real nuance or whether the whole rise against oppression feels earned instead of just convenient, that's a very different conversation, which we will get to after the movie has released. What I can say clearly today is that the selling points here are strong. A director and actor pairing with proven chemistry, a story with real thematic ambition instead of just spectacle, a composer who's already built momentum through the music before the teaser even dropped, and a lead performance that looks like a genuine stretch for Nani. Add a supporting cast with some genuinely interesting choices, and this teaser does exactly what it needed to do.
दोस्तों की जान विक्रम मालिक का स्वागत है.
It made me want to see more, and it made me trust that the more is going to be worth waiting for. Paradise is definitely a movie I want to check out. Between the visual intensity, that speech from Nani, and the pedigree behind the camera, the Paradise has earned a spot on my must-watch list of this teaser alone.
Goddamn right.
So there you have it, two very different promos dropped on the same day and both genuinely worth your attention for very different reasons. Let me know in the comments which one you are more excited for. Subscribe if you haven't already and check out my latest video on Namit Malhotra's Ramayan right here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.